right, everybody, welcome back. My name is Hawk. Tonight we are going to talk about the indictment of Tyler Robinson, the young man from Utah who allegedly assassinated Charlie Kirk. And then I'm going to go through an article by journalist Ken Klippenstein. He got access to Discord chats and interviewed some of Tyler Robinson's friends. And I think that reporting is invaluable, especially in light of what's in this document, the charging document. Yes, I am going to talk about the text message exchanges between Tyler and his roommate/romantic partner. Those text messages, they're written like they are from Ken Burns's documentary on the Civil War, with a wailing violin in the background, the notes and letters that the soldiers would send home to their wives or partners or girlfriends. They're very odd, but that's what we're going to do tonight. So let's start talking about this document here. First thing that I noticed is the case is being prosecuted at the state level. It's being prosecuted by the state of Utah at the county level for the county where this crime took place. It's in Utah County. This is not an indictment that was returned by a grand jury. So this document is not called an indictment. This document is called information. What this document is, it lays out allegations that are being made by the prosecuting attorney against Tyler Robinson. It starts off with the 7 counts that he is facing. Then there is a probable cause statement with multiple sections. And the probable cause statement are the factual allegations that support the 7 criminal counts that Tyler Robinson is charged with. And so this document contains the 7 counts that he's charged with and the factual allegations in support of those charges. In order to support those 7 charges, there have to be facts laid out in the document, in the allegations that support each one of those charges. There are a couple that I'm like, there are a lot of questions that this document raises, and we're going to talk about those as well. So let's dive in. Count 1, aggravated murder. On September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstance. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant, firing into a crowd. And then after some of these questions, or after some of these charges, there's a notice. Conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years to life. Then there is a few of these, because when you're seeking the death penalty in most states, you can have the actual murder, but then you also, typically most states require that you also have some aggravating factors in place that bump the case up from, I don't quite know what word to use here, like a typical murder case that might get somebody 25 to life. But there typically need to be some aggravating factors in place that elevate the case to a death penalty case. And so for example, victim targeting enhancement. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice, the sentencing judge shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. So you have count 1 and those 3 extra paragraphs, or 4 extra paragraphs. Another aggravating factor is that this offense took place in the presence of a child. I don't know why that's an aggravating factor, but in Utah, it is. So it's listed here. Count 2 is felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. Tyler James Robinson, excuse me, discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm, and the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement, same as before. Notice, the judge in the case shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child, also an aggravating factor. Count 3, obstruction of justice. On September 10th, he sought to evade capture and concealed or removed the firearm that he used, and that constitutes a felony. All of these are felonies. Count 4, obstruction of justice. On September 11th, sought to evade capture, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing that he wore during the shooting. Count 5, tampering with a witness. On September 10th, he attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, or documents from police, and directed his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Count 6, tampering with a witness. On September 11th, attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if the police questioned the roommate. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child. Apparently there were children present. And the victim targeting enhancement, that Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. So those are the 7 counts and all of the enhancements and the aggravating factors that go with those counts. Then we get to the probable cause statement. Brian Davis of the Utah State Bureau of Investigations, having probable cause to believe that the defendant committed the above listed offenses, submitted the following evidence in support of the filing of this information. So the Utah State Bureau of Investigations, their lead investigator, Brian Davis, gathered this evidence and provided this information and the evidence to the prosecutor. The prosecutor is recounting that in this document. On September 10th, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. That's counts 1 and 2. Counts 1 and 2 are aggravated murder and felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025, when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun. Count 3. That's the first obstruction count. Discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle. That's count 4, also obstruction. And told his lover/roommate to delete incriminating text messages. That's count 5, for tampering with a witness. And to not talk to police. That's count 6, tampering with a witness. Children were present at the time of the shooting. That's count 7. Children were present. Next section, the shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at a college. It was doing a college tour. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist, famous for these types of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and have drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. They estimate about 3,000 people were there. Mr. Kirk seated himself at under a portable canopy at a table with a microphone. Mr. Kirk allowed questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. So, and I think they mentioned this here, and at the moment that the shot was taken, there was a questioner with a microphone standing directly in front of Charlie Kirk. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind the canopy. There was temporary metal fencing separating him from the crowd, but it was very close to him and to the crowd. There was a building behind that was a college building with floor-to-ceiling glass windows, which overlooked the plaza where this event was taking place, and people were in the walkway and in that building at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals. Only took him till page 4 to mention the word transgender, when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is pending. Then we get into the university surveillance investigation. That's the next section. At the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspended location, the walkway, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof just slightly below. The officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor, a line of sight, between that position and where Mr. Kirk had been seated. He noticed markings in the gravel rooftop consistent with a sniper having laid on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. Police then reviewed surveillance footage from the camera that was covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at about 12:15 p.m. So that's only 8 minutes before the shot was taken. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof, then low crawling to the area the officer recognized where the sniper had dropped into a shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. The discovery led to an intensive review of university surveillance recordings throughout the whole area. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing black shirt with an American flag. He was walking with an unusual gait because he had the rifle down one of his pant legs. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, the camera captures the suspect running across the roof, carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs towards the northeast end of campus. Next section is expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed his path. where they believe the suspect entered a wooded area. In that wooded area is where they found the gun wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts. Only 1 single round was fired. And then we have the inscriptions that were contained on the 4 cartridges. Notices bulge, ooh woo, what's this? The second one, hey fascist, catch, with arrow symbols. Third cartridge, oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao. Fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. There have been several articles written on what that means. The vast majority of that stuff comes from video games. It's shit posting, essentially. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA was found that matched him. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter. They released photos from the surveillance. Then we have the Washington County investigation. From what I understand, Washington County is a couple hours away, and that's where Tyler Robinson, his family lived, and that's where he lived with some roommates. On the evening of September 11th, Tyler Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend and turned himself in. So that was about, other reports that I've read was that it was about midnight the following day. So that was almost 36 hours later. I think they said 33 total. This document skips over those 33 hours in their entirety. Whatever that means. Robinson's mother stated the following to police. On September 11th, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home sick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspected shooter looked like Tyler. Tyler's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, there's no detailed information in here about how she was conversing with police. Was this over the phone? Was she in person? Was she being questioned? What questions were being asked? That first paragraph, that makes total sense. The second paragraph in this section, and there's no segue in between them, and again, there's no explanation as to how it came to pass that the mother offered this information. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started leaning more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at the university, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. That paragraph seems to summarize a whole lot of conversation between the mother and at least a detective. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle the police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. Doesn't say by who. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. That's a big leap. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. They didn't say where he was when they had this conversation. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and Charlie Kirk spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. There is nothing in here. There's no statement from that family friend who is retired law enforcement. Presumably they interviewed him, and that family friend recounted to police what his conversation was with Robinson. Nothing about that conversation is included in this document. And when I get closer towards the end, I'm going to talk about what needs to be in this document and what a defense attorney will do with the information that's in this document. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all the evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The family friend asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothing in other areas. Here we go. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting and provided those messages to police. On September 10th, no time is given in the document. There's no time frame for this. September 10th was the day of the shooting. On September 10th, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you are doing and look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, past tense, and I'm going to take it, future tense." Police found a photograph of this note. They didn't find the note. There was only a photograph of the note. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking." Robinson. These are text messages. "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Roommate. You weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson. I am. I'm sorry. Roommate. I thought they caught the person. Robinson. No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Vehicle. Roommate. Why? Robinson. Why did I do it? Roommate. Yeah. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. He's texting all of this while he's on the run on the day of the shooting. These are very long text messages for someone who is on the run. And again, there are no corresponding times with these text messages. There are no time frames provided for any of these text messages. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, the rifle, but there is a squad car parked right by it. So he's actively evading police while he's texting all of this. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. And then there's a skip. Robinson. Again, while he's on the run. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in the bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the fuck will I explain losing it, the rifle, to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? See, that implies the roommate had foreknowledge, or was at least aware that he was engraving 30-06 bullets before this shooting took place. The fucking messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulges ooh-woo on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it, the rifle. That really fucking sucks. So he's texting all of this when he's in view of a police car that's right next to the wooded area where he dropped the rifle. These text messages, to me, don't really contain what I would describe as a sense of urgency or I have to text you back later. He just lays out this full confession while he's sitting in an area looking at a police car right next to where he dropped the rifle. He types out over a page and a half of text messages. Anyway, I'm just saying that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But what do I know? I'm just a dumb country lawyer. Text continues on. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope mounted on top of the gun. Then there's a break. It says, Robinson, delete this exchange. That's an obstruction and a tampering count. Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Break. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad, not my old man, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Another break. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. You are all I worry about, love. I'm much more worried about you. Don't talk to the media, please. Tampering. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. Tampering. If the police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Tampering. The search of the Robinsons' residence. Police executed a search warrant on the Robinsons' residence. During that search, police discovered shell casings with etchings, like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near the university. What were those etchings? How many shells did they find that had etchings on them? What were those etchings? Where in the residence did they find them? Was Tyler living there, or was he living in an apartment with roommates? Police also found several targets with bullet holes in the Robinsons' home, and then it recounts the 7 counts again. There's nothing in here about a search of Tyler's apartment where he was living with his roommates. There's nothing in here about that or anything they found there. If Tyler was living at a separate residence with roommates, police would search that. If they found anything there, it would be in this document. It's extremely curious to me that it's not. Based upon evidence retrieved from Brian Davis at Utah State University, authorized for presentment and filing on September 16th, 2025, and it's signed by the county prosecuting attorney. Okay. This document lays out the 7 counts that he's charged with. and the factual allegations in support of those 7 counts. At a minimum, this is the set of facts that the prosecutor has to prove at trial in order to support conviction on these 7 counts. That does not mean that this document contains every piece of evidence that the prosecutors have, but they did go into great detail in this document, which they didn't really have to do, but they did. This is a 10-page document. I've seen indictments that were longer, like the ones that came from Jack Smith, and when he was indicting Donald Trump. I've seen ones that were shorter than this, like the one that Alvin Bragg put out in support of his 34 felony charges against Donald Trump in Manhattan, 34 felony counts of which Donald Trump was convicted, 34 felony counts which still remain on Donald Trump's criminal record. On the same day that this charging document was released, the 16th, yesterday, independent journalist Ken Klippenstein put out this article. It's about 17 pages long, give or take, titled "Exclusive Leaked Messages from Charlie Kirk Assassin. Accused Shooter's Politics Are Not What the Government and the Media Say." And so Ken Klippenstein talked to a bunch of Tyler Robinson's friends and peers. Got a photograph from one of them from a camping trip. That's Tyler Robinson pictured camping with his friends at Gold Butte National Monument in Nevada. And they provided exclusive access to some Discord chats and recounted other conversations, text messages, things like that. It starts off with the message that Tyler Robinson left in a Discord chat with his friends. He was in several Discord chats with different groups of friends. He said, "Hey guys, I've got bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday." Thus, Tyler Robinson messaged his friends on Discord, seemingly apologizing for murdering Charlie Clark. Quote, "I'm sorry for all of this." The author obtained this and other Discord chats, along with new information that the author learned about Robinson from the people who knew him best. And then he's got a screenshot. So here's the thing also about this document and those text messages, the text messages exchanged. The text messages are just retyped in this document. They're just retyped. There are no screenshots of text messages in this document, the charging document. In Ken Klippenstein's article, he got screenshots with usernames of these Discord posts. Somebody posted Charlie Kirk got shot. That's at 3:17 p.m. on September 10th. Somebody else posted dead. That's at 3:44 p.m. on September 10th. At 4:40 p.m., somebody put, "I just saw the video. Holy shit. RIP, I guess. Bro didn't deserve to go out like that. Sad." Then at 8:57 p.m. the following day, September 11th, is when Tyler messaged the Discord chat and said, "Hey guys, I've got bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thanks for all the good times and laughs. You've been so amazing. Thank you all for everything." So Trump and the Trump administration and right-wing media portray the shooter as left-wing, and some liberals and people on the left, not elected Democrats, have portrayed him as right-wing. The federal conclusion will inevitably be that he was right-wing. Quoting some of Robinson's friends, It's been so terrible, and seeing it from an inside perspective is so frustrating. A friend of Robinson's since middle school told the author. The childhood friend who asked not to be named for fear of threats provided the author with the above non-public photo of Robinson, this one, on a camping trip to corroborate their relationship. Quote, I think the main thing that's caused so much confusion is that he was always generally apolitical for the most part. That's the big thing. He just never really talked politics, which is why this is so frustrating. These are the people who knew him the best, probably better than his own family, especially if he wasn't living with his family, which is not clear from the charging document. The picture that emerges bears little resemblance to the media version. Robinson, the author is told, though quiet, was a well-liked person with a supportive family. The friend group who he interacted with on Discord, far from some kind of militia camp or Antifa bunker, as it's been portrayed, represented a range of different political views, but they mostly talked about video games. On the 15th, FBI Director Kash Patel said in an interview that Robinson, quote, subscribed to left-wing ideology, citing his family's remarks to investigators. But those close to Robinson say there was a lot his family didn't know about him. Excuse me. Quote, their ideas are based on someone they didn't fully understand, a friend told the author. Though the family was generally supportive of Robinson, a claim corroborated by his mother's Facebook account brimming with praise for Tyler, they didn't seem to know about his relationship with a transgender person named Lance, the friend said. When I asked if his family would be accepting, the friend replied, I don't think even Tyler knew the answer to that question, which is why he kept it so low-key between him and his family. Tyler's bisexuality, the friend said, was coupled with an openness on LGBTQ issues, but his wasn't some cookie-cutter lefty position on every or even most issues. The friend said, obviously he's okay with gay and trans people having a right to exist, but he also believes in the Second Amendment, referring to the right to bear arms. The friend described Robinson as a fairly typical young man of his age in Utah, someone who loved the outdoors, was a gamer, and was into guns. To all of us, he just seemed like a simple guy who liked playing games like Sea of Thieves, Deep Rock Galactic, and Helldivers 2. He loved to fish, he loved to camp. It really did seem like that's all he was about. As an aside, and then there's a screenshot from a message that he posted about the video game Helldivers 2. I have seen a ton of TikToks from former Mormons. This family was Mormon in Utah. Basically, and I saw other reporting that said after he had his initial conversation with his parents, the first thing that the family did was to call their local bishop. I've seen multiple TikToks from people on who are former Mormons that said in circumstances such as these, the family's number one priority and the local bishop's number one priority will be to protect the reputation of the church, even at times at the expense of their child who is in circumstances similar to Tyler's, which I think could offer some clarification or explanation potentially on the statements in the charging document from Tyler's mother and from Tyler's father. That as a criminal defense attorney, that's something that I would explore a lot. And if they did have a phone call with their local bishop or met with their local bishop, I sure as shit would be involving that local bishop in this case. The phrase inscribed on one of the bullet casings from the shooting, "Hey fascist, catch," though widely reported to mean that Tyler was on the left, is in fact a reference to the Helldivers 2 video game. 3 arrows initially believed by federal agents to be a reference to Antifa are also a reference to Helldivers. Can we thank Donald Trump's tweet declaring Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Can we thank this for that? Private Discord messages shared with the offer by a friend of Robinson's confirm that Robinson wasn't some political martyr. A search for Robinson's posts on Discord containing keywords like Biden or Trump turned up just one post for each name. The Trump post was a passing reference to the 2019 impeachment inquiry. The Biden one came the day of the 2020 election. So 5 years ago and 6 years ago, where he provided an update to another friend asking about the status of the vote count. Here's the 6-year-old 2019 Discord post from Tyler about a Trump impeachment, September 25th, 2019. And here's a screenshot of Tyler's posts regarding the Joe Biden and the 2020 election from 5 years ago. 6 years ago and 5 years ago. So in the last 5 years, he had not mentioned either Trump or Joe Biden in any of his Discord chats with his close friends. The childhood friend is a member of multiple Discord chats with Robinson. He described the group as trying to grapple with Robinson's motive just like everyone else. Even the goodbye message sent in one of our Discord chats was so hard to believe. We all just thought, what a weird joke to make. Then the news came out and we were all calling each other saying, check the news. Yeah, I don't know what makes a person like him decide he's going to drive 260 miles upstate to shoot someone like Charlie Kirk, then come back like nothing happened. It leaves a lot of room for speculation and theories, which is why I think they're so rampant. I hadn't seen any coverage in the news that where he lived and where the shooting took place were 260 miles apart from one another. Part of the confusion the friend attributes to Tyler's quiet nature. Quote, he was a really smart guy, but super hard to read, stone cold poker face, and you could never be confident assuming anything. The friend replied, as far as we knew, he was opened up. That was him being open. Despite his verbal reticence, Robinson was not a loner, according to his friends. Unlike the stereotypical outcast shooter driven to violence by social rejection, Tyler was apparently amiable and well-liked. Everyone who knew him liked him, this is quoting a friend, and he was always nice, a little quiet and kept to himself mostly, but he wasn't a recluse. Regardless of the horrible actions that took place, we must take this moment to remember that God is a living and loving God and loves all his children. That's from another Discord post. While Charlie Kirk's politics were not acceptable to some, I ask that we say a prayer for him and his family during these confusing times. And there's a screenshot from that Discord post. Quote, the last message is religious in nature, which just goes to show the apolitical nature of the server, the Discord chat. We all have pretty differing views on politics, the friend said. We all just exist as friends and just play stuff, video games. Cat memes, weather updates, home improvement, and the odd Garfield reference populate Robinson's post. Quote, I'm going to eep pretty soon, very eepy, Robinson said in one post, an intentionally silly misspelling of the word sleep, common among Gen Z. Here are some screenshots of some of his other Discord posts, including the one that I just read. And some other screenshots about the weather difference between Utah and New Hampshire in the springtime. That one got cut off. Here's another about replacing bolts or something. He's not expressing anything radical or political or angry or anything on either political side in these conversations with his closest friends, where he was having these conversations with people every single day. He hadn't said one word about politics or Trump or Biden in 5 years before the shooting. And he never said one word about Charlie Kirk, ever. Never said anything about trans, never said anything about anything. The federal government and the Washington crowd and corporate media see the country in wholly partisan terms. Republican versus Democrat, red versus blue, old media versus social media, liberal versus conservative, right versus left, straight versus gay, and on and on and on. Charlie Kirk's assassination in Utah should remind us of the actual diversity of the nation and the cost of polarization that demonizes the other side. No one in Robinson's group is cheering or justifying the murder in any of the messages that the author reviewed. They're just struggling to understand what their friend did. But Washington has become obsessed with the Discord chats, convinced it's some kind of headquarters for the murder and cauldron of radicalization and conspiracy. Yesterday, while testifying before the Senate, FBI Director Kash Patel vowed to investigate, quote, anyone and everyone in that Discord chat, close quote. So all of these young people are going to have Kash Patel in the FBI all the way up their ass. Even though this case is not charged federally, it's charged at the county level in state court. But the FBI and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are going to be all the way up these kids' asses, even though they're not a part of the criminal case. Because Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, and Donald Trump have completely politicized and weaponized the FBI. And so that component of the investigation is going to be purely for political reasons. What the author sees is a bunch of young people who are shocked, horrified, and searching for answers like the rest of the country. So, again, going back to the charging document, there are a lot of gaping holes in that document, to me. But, you know, the first 3 or 4 years that I was an attorney, I did criminal defense. And so it's like I see a charging document and I automatically look at it from the perspective of a criminal defense attorney. Where can I poke holes in this? What's lacking? What's unexplained? What doesn't work? What doesn't flow? What doesn't fit? There's a bunch of that with that charging document. But listen to his friends talk in that article from Ken Klippenstein, and who knew him best, and compare that to the Tyler Robinson that is portrayed in that charging document. And listen to the language of his posts in these multiple Discord chats, and compare it with screenshots, and compare those to the text messages as recounted in the charging document, paragraph-long text messages that he was supposedly texting in the moments after the shooting while he was trying to evade police and go back and get his gun. No screenshots. Again, I don't mean to imply that the Utah County prosecuting attorney or anyone involved with the Utah County prosecutor's office would fabricate these text messages, but they didn't include screenshots. And a defense attorney is going to have an opportunity to interview all of these witnesses before trial. And a defense attorney is going to have the opportunity to cross-examine every single witness who appears at trial. And so let's talk about these text messages for a second. How would a prosecutor introduce these text messages into evidence? Assuming, I think correctly, that Tyler Robinson doesn't take the stand. They would need a police forensic officer or a police forensic expert to identify Tyler Robinson's phone, how they identified that phone as belonging to Tyler Robinson, then walking through how they did a full data dump from that phone onto a police server and that these text messages appeared in that data dump, and that this document accurately reflects the text messages that were actually in a phone owned by Tyler Robinson that nobody else had access to. And when these text messages are introduced at trial, there are going to be corresponding timestamps with them. So, because how you get electronic data or documents into evidence during a trial, you have to do that through witnesses. Like handing a document to a witness. Do you recognize this document? Can you describe this document? What does this document say? They have to authenticate it. They have to verify it. And only then can whatever is in the document be read into evidence in front of a jury. So, but again, it's like, I'm not saying that a Utah County prosecutor would fabricate anything, but Kash Patel has had his nose all up in this investigation, as have Dan Bongino and the FBI and Pam Bondi and the DOJ and people in the Trump administration. And they didn't charge him federally, which means that to me, that implies that they have had significant influence over the creation of this document and the investigation that went into gathering the facts that support the charges in this document. This document doesn't say jack shit about the involvement of the FBI at any step of the way. But Kash Patel testified in front of the Senate that he sent all kinds of FBI assets to Utah to help with that investigation, none of which is detailed in this document. What were those FBI agents doing? What did they do? What did they find? Who did they interview? Did they get statements? Did they find any evidence? What did they do with that evidence? What did they do with those statements? So I'm just saying, because my brain works like a criminal defense attorney there, I have a lot of questions about that document and what's in there. Anyway, so I hope all of that gives everybody more things to think about. Comparing who Tyler is portrayed as in that article versus who Tyler is portrayed as in the charging documents, there are a lot of significant differences there. And for that and many other reasons, I think there are a lot of questions remaining, the vast majority of which don't have to be answered in that charging document. That document only needs to contain enough factual information to support the charges that are brought. So there's going to be a lot more evidence. There's going to be a lot more witnesses and witness statements. There's probably a truckload of information and evidence that's out there that's not a part of that charging document. And I would expect that to be the case at this stage of the investigation and the charging. So there's going to be a lot coming in this case in the coming weeks, months, and I would guess year or two before there's some kind of resolution. The state is seeking the death penalty. Utah still offers the option of a firing squad, and so that's on the table as well. If you have any questions about all of this stuff, please let me know in the comments. And again, if you enjoyed this video, please click like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my page, which is free to do so. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Hawk, and I'll see you guys soon. Be safe this week.